What's good? Matt Clark here at the new Matt Clark. How are each and every one of you doing on this amazing Tuesday? I'm doing great, my girl's doing great, my family's doing great. I hope each and every one of you are doing great despite the times that we're living. And if you could please hit that like button, if you could please hit that subscribe button and that bell notification button so you get all my videos when they're new. If you could share with somebody on social media, help spread the message, help spread the word, that'd be amazing. And there's a PayPal option if you'd like to donate, help support the channel. The link is in the description of all of my videos. So I just want to go back a little bit and talk about parole. You know, I get asked a lot of questions about getting out. How long is it going to be? Am I going to get parole? And not a lot of people are putting a whole lot of thought into the behavior while you're inside. And that behavior isn't always dictated by you. Sometimes situations can happen and it's dictated by an outside influence, like somebody wants to fight you and you have no option. Like that happened to me. So I got in one fight that was both fights I really was the initiator, but I had to. You know, there's situations that I had to. And I was blessed to have not been punished for one, and for the other one not get caught at all, despite the fact that I got smashed in the face with a frying pan. All of this knowing I'm just about to get parole. But then when I finally do get parole, my behavior just kind of went out the window. And I'm gonna go prior to that though, just prior to that. And I was super lucky that this didn't affect me. This is about 6 months, 8 months before I went for parole. So we were on lockdown. It was one of those lockdowns out of the blue. Typically in the pen, you don't have shortage of staff lockdowns. But this night, we had a shortage of staff lockdown. And me, being my entitled self, was not happy. Didn't want to be locked in the block. Wanted to be able to go out and get my spliffs and do what I wanted to do. So I was bitter. So when the coppers are doing the walk, and you ask them, like, why are we locked down? Why are we not getting let out? And the copper says to me, well, one officer died, passed away, and that's why blah, 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 blah. There's this long spiel, which I didn't listen to because I was ignorant. And I said, nobody cares about your dead copper friend. Let us out. It didn't take me very long to realize what I had said. And honestly, it was a crazy time because the next morning I got called out by a couple blue shirts, like high up blue shirts that literally threatened me. Threatened to go to all my files, just destroy my files, say that I was this and I was that and I was doing drugs all the time, basically threatening to destroy my parole. And of course, you know, at the end of the day, I'm a convict, so I'm not going to say nothing. I'm just going to, chuckle. And nothing really came of it except a bunch of threats and a bunch of attitude, getting like searched for no reason, just stupid stuff, right? But it just showed the lack of respect that I had for even my own freedom, despite the fact that I didn't want to be in prison, that I was not happy there, and I knew that I was done. I was still acting this way because I was institutionalized, and it's very easy to get caught up when you're in there. You're in this emotional roller coaster, you know, you're caught behind the walls, you don't have any real support system, except maybe your parents, you know, all your friends have kind of abandoned you and you're kind of bitter about that. So you kind of have a lot on your plate. It's a lonely existence. And sometimes it's hard to not get caught up in prison because there's a lot of really dumb people in prison. Although there's a lot of really smart people in prison, there's a lot of people in prison that know that you're on that path, that you're trying to change your life, and they're going to come and try to throw a wrench in the spokes or try to F that up for you. It's kind of the same as if you're in provincial or something and guys are bragging about getting out in the next couple days. Guys will smash them or whatever. It's the same kind of idea, except a more shisty and like left-handed way of doing it. And it happens, man. I've seen it happen. But for me personally, just before I got out, man, I should have known better. I should have stopped smoking weed. I should have stopped fighting. I should have stopped being involved in the subculture, trading my Suboxone and doing all that stuff. But I didn't. I wasn't able to. You know, despite the fact that I knew I was already accepted to Stonehenge, and as long as I stayed out of trouble for the next 6 to 8 months or whatever it was that I had left, I would get out. I never changed my ways. And I had told myself that if I got accepted for parole, I was going to stop everything. I'd just cut it all out, right? What happens? I go for my parole hearing, boom. A lot of guys assume that you get parole, you're out the next day, but that is not true, especially if you're going to like a treatment center or a specific halfway house. Then you have to wait for bed space. So sometimes you can be given parole and be there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months after waiting for a bed to open up where it is your time. I've seen guys get parole and get out before they ever got out from their parole because they weren't doing a long sentence. It happens. Those kind of things do happen. And what I've also seen a lot of is what I almost risked myself. Guys literally throwing away their parole before they get out. Something like a dirty urinalysis. Doesn't matter if it's for chronic, doesn't matter if it's for number 4, number 3, doesn't really matter what it's for. You get that dirty urinalysis, your parole is technically finished. Most likely parole officer is going to pull support, the parole board is going to pull support, and you're going to do the rest of your time to stat before you ever get out. Now sometimes I think stat is a better situation. I think doing 2/3 of your time, if you're doing a short amount of time, is a better situation with less parole when you're finished, with less conditions, no halfway house, possibly no residency depending on your support system. And I think you just have a much greater chance of being successful if you don't start in a halfway house. But me personally, I almost threw it all away by being a knucklehead. I was literally accepted for parole, still smoking weed every day, smuggling my Suboxone under my tongue, doing stupid things that could have very easily had my parole yanked. And I didn't care. Like I said, I got in a fight with a guy a few months before where I got smoked in the head with a frying pan, had this giant cyclops goose egg in the middle of my head. And the reality is, people are probably happy to see me. The feds were probably happy to see me with my head smashed and just decided that they were just going to laugh at me. Because of how much of a pain in the ass I was. Because I literally was a mouth, right? Like, no respect to the feds, no respect to the coppers. At the end of the day, if I'm bitter, if I'm upset because we're locked down, I've definitely voiced my opinion. I've definitely speak at the top of my lungs, despite the fact that it's not necessary. And sometimes that makes you stand out. So don't do that. Best thing to do is to just keep to yourself, keep quiet. Don't stand out, because if you stand out, you're obviously could be the target of, like, you know, CO aggression or frustration, you know. I remember the first time I was in Lindsay, I had 2 guys come up to me and threaten me for a fed. Blew my mind. First time I ever saw that happen, because in young offender or something like that's never going to happen, right? Typically it's not going to happen. Maybe if there's like a lot of stuff put on the line, like a big payment. But these guys in Lindsay were just beating up guys for the feds because the feds told them to. Like on some real waste man stuff, okay? But ultimately my point is that as soon as you're on that path for parole, you need to start taking it seriously. You need to focus on what matters to you. If you're going to continue with doing school, if you haven't finished your high school, if you're going to maybe look for some college bursaries and get a college course and start that for free, which is possible. I got a couple courses myself. I got a social psychology course, and I got a construction management, project management course for free of all costs through the library and the penitentiary. And those kind of resources are there. If you look for them, you know what to look for, and you take advantage of them. And sometimes those opportunities will only be given to people that look like they're serious about it, right? It look like they actually want to make changes in their life. You got to snatch the opportunities, because they're never going to give it to you. We don't live in a rehabilitation-based system. It's punishment, punishment, punishment. And every once in a while, if somebody turns it around and it looks good for them, that's great. Suppress all the information of everybody doing terribly, because the reality is that's what it is. You know, it's like, it's almost as if you take somebody and you let them out, but when you let them out, they got handcuffs or shackles on their ankles, and they got a bunch of concrete stones on their back just to make every movement of their day more difficult. That's what they do. They try to overwhelm you, and they even try to do that on the inside if they know you have parole. So first of all, I would suggest, if you do get parole, tell very few people. Don't rub it in anybody's faces. That can lead to resentment, and that can lead to somebody trying to start with you. It happens, okay? Cut all drug use. A dirty urinalysis, whether for marijuana, whether for number 4, number 3, it doesn't matter. If you get a urinalysis, good chance your parole support is going to be pulled from your parole officer and possibly from the parole board. And then there's always the fact that you got to be focused, because in prison, it's really easy to make decisions that you think aren't for one reason when they really are, like a seemingly unrelated decision where you put yourself in harm's way subconsciously just because you want to live. You're tired of being locked up. You're tired of being stressed out, so you want to go smoke some spliffs or something. So you got to go hit the subculture, which always puts you at risk. There's cameras, there's snitches like crazy. It's that kind of environment, especially if people know you're going home. Take your parole seriously if you get the opportunity. Not a lot of people do get it. The first time I got it was accelerated parole. I didn't respect it at all. And I was back in prison within 30 days doing years consecutive. And remember this, if you get charged with any crime while you were on parole or while you're on the run from parole or something, they're going to sentence you tenfold because of that. And always gonna run consecutive. Just keep that in mind. Once you're federal, it doesn't ever go back. It never ever goes back to normal. The chance of you getting a provincial sentence, unless for like a minor theft or something, is slim to nil, and you may not even get it for that. Obviously, I share my stories with you guys, so you guys don't have to go through these things yourselves. If I could snap my fingers, nobody else goes to prison. Nobody has to experience these things. That's what I do. But that's not a reality, especially in 2021. We know it's hard out here. People are hungry. Ribs is touching. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And sometimes that can land you in prison. And these videos are to give people a little bit more information about what not to do and what to do if you are blessed enough to get parole. There was a point in Ontario where parole was basically not happening. If you were not a first-time offender, non-violent, it was not happening. They're going to warehouse you for your whole sentence to stat, and that's just it. When you go out on parole, they're going to overwhelm you and try to get you back to do the rest of it. Job security is just the way that the system works. They try to, portray the image of rehabilitation, but we know that's not facts. It is punishment. And it is your job to not allow that punishment to turn into more punishment and more punishment and more punishment. We can be our own worst enemies. We always are the reason why we lose. It's nobody else. We know the guidelines. We know what we got to do. And if parole is that important to you, changing your life is that important to you, then you got to stay on the straight and narrow. I was blessed. I was lucky to not have lost my parole or even the opportunity to have gotten parole. I was lucky to not gotten kicked out of treatment at one time. That's just a reality. I was lucky. And I could probably tell a story about treatment at some times. If you could please hit the like button, if you could please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification buttons to get all my videos when they're new. If you could share with somebody on social media, help spread the message, help spread the word, that'd be amazing. And there's a PayPal option if you'd like to donate, help support the channel. The link is in the description of all of my videos. So, 1/3 of your time, you are possibly eligible for parole. If you're a non-violent offender, your chances nowadays of getting parole is actually pretty good. If you're a violent offender and you have good behavior, you actually may have a chance of getting parole at some point during your sentence, specifically if you're doing a little bit of a longer sentence, as long as your behavior is good. And if your behavior is bad, I hate to tell you, you're doing stat every time. Keep that in mind. Parole is a blessing, and there's a lot of guys that never, ever, ever in all of their sentences get the opportunity to get a second chance. And once you beat a federal sentence, there's no probation. It's over. You're actually free. The only thing that's going to get you in prison after that is you being charged. It's literally a blessing in disguise. Love each and every one of you. The new Matt Clark.